Hey there, grade 7s. So in this video we're going to talk a little bit about improper fractions and mixed numbers. So you might find yourself from time to time with the kind of addition problem that you see here, where 2/3 plus 3/3 equals 5/3. And what you got is an improper fraction. This fraction is improper because the number on top is bigger than the number on the bottom. So the numerator is greater than the denominator. And we call these things improper fractions. Now, we don't want to keep them as improper fractions. We want to make them into mixed numbers, and that's when there's a whole number and then a fraction beside it. So I have some examples here of turning some improper fractions into mixed numbers. For our first one, we have 5/3, just like I showed in the addition problem before, and I have a visual of it as well. So you can imagine with 5/3 that we have 5/3 of a pizza. So there's 3/3 of a pizza here, and there's 2/3 of a pizza there. Of course, together, that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5/3 of a pizza. Looking at the picture, you can tell already there's going to be one whole and 2/3, because there's one whole here and 2/3 there. So we could write that as the answer already. There's going to be one whole and 2/3, because drawing a picture made it really clear. Eventually, it's going to get harder to do this. We're going to have fractions that are a lot bigger for the denominator. So it's important to know mathematically how to do it as well. To do it mathematically, we should always know what our whole is. Because the denominator is 3, a whole in this case is 3/3. So one way that I could turn this improper fraction into a mixed number is to say to myself, if a whole number is 3/3, I can take 3/5, make that into a whole, and what I'm left with is, if I do 5 take away 3, I'm left with 2/3. Why did I take 3 out? Well, 3/3 is a whole, so I took 3/3 out of there. It gave me a new whole number, and 2/3 are left over. Again, the picture makes this look quite clear. I have a picture for the next one again, which helps to guide it, but I want you to understand it mathematically. So our denominator is 4 for this one. So what would a whole be in this case? Well, 4/4 is a whole in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 out of the top, because 4/4 makes a new whole, and that makes one new whole number. If I take 4 out of the top, how much am I left with? In other words, 7 take away 4 leaves you with how much? It leaves you with 3. And you can again see by comparing it to the picture why this is possible, and why it is I took 4 out of the top. It's because 4 slices would make a whole pizza in this case. This time, we're going to end up with more than one whole. Again, the picture gives it away a little bit at the beginning. I have 5 halves. How much does it take to make a whole if we're using halves? Well, every 2 out of 2 would be a whole. If I took only 2 out of the top, I'd be left with 3. There's room to make another whole. So I'm going to take 4 out of the top, because 4 is 2 wholes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 halves will make 2 wholes. So the thing I'm taking out of there is the same thing as 4 out of 2. That's how much I'm taking out of 5 halves. I'm taking 4 out of 2 out. It makes for 2 whole. 5 take away 4 will leave me with a half. And again, the picture shows I have 2 wholes and a half. This one here, we again have more than one whole. If the denominator is 3, if it's out of 3, every whole is going to be 3/3. So I count up by 3's until I get as close to 10 as I can. Maybe I count on my fingers. 3, 6, 9. That's as close as I can get, because I'm going up by multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9. So that leaves me with 3 wholes. If I take 9 out of the top, if I take 9 out of 3 and turn that into 3 whole, if I take 9 out of the top, how much am I left with? I'm left with 1/3. So I have 3 whole and 1/3. Now, of course, anytime we do something one way in math, we often have to be able to do it the other way as well. So sometimes, especially if you're going to possibly do a subtraction problem, you might need to turn a mixed number back into an improper fraction. And so we have some examples of that over here. To do this, I can just simply take my whole number, multiply it by the denominator, and add it to the top. So I can do 1 times 4, that's 4. 4 plus 1 is 5, so I have 5/4. Why does that work? Well, the denominator says how many pieces it is to make a whole. In this case, because it's out of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes 4 out of 4 to make a whole. So I take this whole, I cut it up into 4 pieces, just like this. It's 4 out of 4. I can add that back and put it into the top, and I have 5 out of 4. For this one again, I can ask myself, what does it take to make a whole? Well, 5 out of 5 is a way of doing it. So you can do it either way that you prefer. You can think that each whole is like a 5 out of 5 and add that to the top. Or if you want to do it a faster way, you could say the whole number times the denominator and add that to the top. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 plus 3 gives you 8. So 8 out of 5 is the same thing as 1 whole and 3 out of 5. We have more wholes that are possible in our bottom 2 examples here. So in this case, because it's out of 6, each new whole is 6 out of 6. What I can do, again, if I want to, I could think of each one of these being 6. So there's 2 wholes, so that's 6, 12. I can add 12 to the top, and that will leave me with 13 out of 6. Or I can prefer to do my speedier trick. I take the whole number, multiply it by denominator, add it to the top. 2 times 6 is 12. 12 plus 1 is 13. Both of them get you to the same answer. The diagram again shows why this is possible. For our last one here, we have 4 whole and a half. Again, I want to turn it into an improper fraction. Each whole, in this case, would be 2 out of 2. So I could, of course, think that there are 4 of these things. So there are 4 2 out of 2s. So I count up 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 plus 1 is 9 out of 2. Or I could use the trick, which most students prefer. I do the whole number, multiply it by the denominator, and add it to the top. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. 9 out of 2, or 9 halves, is the same thing as 4 and a half.